What is up, everybody? It is Luis Martinez here, collaborator of the San Diego Latino Film Festival, this time in its 27th year, virtualized for your safety. Obviously, this is the time of year where we would be getting together at Fashion Valley, drinking some free Stella Ariolas, talking to filmmakers and collaborating and doing live Q&As with the audience after seeing a film like Días De Luz. But instead, we have to do a virtual review. We have to do a virtual sit down, and it is incredible because I've gotten to talk to filmmakers from Argentina to Germany to today, um, Panama and Costa Rica. So I want to welcome in the two co-directors of this film, Mauro Borges and Enrique Pérez. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the spot.
Thanks for the invitation. I'm doing great, and thanks for everyone watching at home.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody that's watching, if you have any questions about the festival or about this film in particular, I have a lot. So let's jump right into it. The first thing that struck me is that, co-directors. So, as a director myself, I know that on movie sets, specifically, there always has to be one voice. For a project like this that's so extensive, that's so vast, how did you guys handle sort of teaming up for this? Whichever one of you guys wants to take it.
Well, at first, we started this project because we thought it would be like the easiest way to do it. Like teaming up and doing it with a lot of crews, a lot of directors, and different producers in different countries. At the beginning of the process, which was in 2014, we thought, oh, maybe it'd be easier if everyone just made a short film in each country and then we make it a feature. It turned out to be like a titanic task, like getting everyone together and getting everyone to be like on the same page on the movie we wanted to create. Because ever since we started the project, we knew we wanted it to be one film. There were going to be different directors, different producers, different crews, but we wanted to make one film. We wanted to make this ensemble piece where stories would connect throughout the whole movie. And yeah, we thought it'd be like this synergy would make the film, But they like working from the distance, and this before the pandemic and everything. We started working, Mauro in Costa Rica, me in Panama, and other people in Nicaragua and in Guatemala, and so on. We started to feel, the distance and working through Skype or working through, the video calls and stuff like that. It wasn't easy. It made the process a lot longer, but it was really interesting to connect and co-create and negotiate as well on the film we wanted to make, and I feel that in the end we succeeded in making one film, which was our great goal.
No, because when I watched it, and I've been watching a lot of movies to prepare for the interviews and for the festival. When I watched it, I first thought it was like a Guatemalan film or Panama, or like a single country. Like I watched it and it feels like one movie filmed in one place by one film crew. It doesn't feel like four separate entities. So if that was your goal, to bring those things together, then you guys did an amazing job, because I didn't even realize it, because I was doing a little research about you guys, but I didn't even realize until I saw the credits that you had a Panama crew, you had a Nicaragua crew, you had a Guatemala crew, you had a Costa Rica crew. So for me, that's when, so it was almost like a plot twist at the end, where it was like, surprise, this is actually a bunch of different movies put together, or a bunch of different crews working together, and your credits are like, so yeah, I can imagine. So Mauro, you were handling the stuff in where, or how did you guys split up the work?
Well, actually, what we did was that, Kiki and I were sort of the heads of the script of the whole movie. We had inputs from every director that was there, and what we did was that we set up some guidelines for each one of the directors, so that at least in style, we wouldn't drift too far from each other, so that it would have a coherence at the end. So basically, what we did was that we had a lot of talks with our DP. We had a lot of talks with our assistant director, and we had a lot of talks with our continuity director, and they became and our sound director as well, and they became our eyes and ears in terms of what we wanted to achieve. And Kiki and I were constantly talking about how we wanted this movie to feel, and especially with the timing of the movie, because that's a really difficult thing to do if you're not on set and you're not looking at what everyone else is doing. You just have to go by what the crew that was in the previous productions can tell you. Like, oh, this scene, they shot it like this and this, and we had to like go on the fly a little bit. Of course, we had everything.
So you guys shot everything with the same camera, same sort of technical stuff, right?
Yeah. We had the RDP went country to country, along with the AD and with the sound director and our continuity director.
Where did the story originate? Because it is basically kind of, it's got so many different elements. It's got religious elements. It's got prophets, false prophets. It's got bringing different worlds together into it. But it also seems like it's one of those sum of all fears, like a fear of something that could happen. Is this similar to something that happened, an event that happened in real life? Is this something that you guys came up with together, or where did the genesis of the story come from?
Well,
Either one of you guys.
we the genesis of the project is we wanted to make a collective project. We wanted to make a movie that could happen in all 6 countries at the same time. And we all knew each other. Like, I knew Mauro from before, and we had built a solid network of Central American producers. We've met in different festivals and different events. So, like, building this network, we decided, we can actually make a movie together. So that's how it started. It didn't actually began from the story. It began from this need to actually, or this.
So the team came first before the. Looks like Enrique got frozen a little bit there. So
yeah, just to complement what he was saying. Yeah, the thing is, we were watching each other at local festivals. We knew each other from movies, from things we liked, and it just came naturally, the question of, hey, since you're doing this and I'm doing this, why don't we just get together and do something else? And that began to snowball into bringing up all types of producers and creative people into the project.
So as opposed to the idea germinating in somebody's brain and then reaching out to people to make it happen, you guys built the team, or had the idea of what the team for the project would be, and so you flipped it. You did the reverse, but it came out incredible. The cinematography. I'm a neighbor, so I'm from Colombia, so I'm familiar with the landscapes of South America. But Central America is such a beautiful place. That the shot of the abuelita and the little boy crossing the street with the church in front of them, and like, I don't know if that was a golden hour. I don't know if that was a golden hour shot, but I was like, I paused it on the screen and I was like, oh my god, the composition on this shot is incredible. So did how hard did you guys work on the aesthetic, on the feel and the look of it?
Well, that was. Oh, go ahead, Mauro.
Okay, I'm gonna just a little bit, and
Yeah,
then
okay, yeah.
I'm gonna give it over to Kike. Okay.
Go ahead.
We did some research before, but since we were shooting all over the place because we had a really tight schedule for shooting this movie. We had about 5 to 4 days in each country to finish each one of the stories. So we did have a rather robust set of references of what we wanted to achieve. But our DP was great, and he really stuck his neck out for us because he was working with minimal equipment, and he had a great empathy for the light and the circumstances of actually what was going on, other than what we had planned. So he really does have an amazing set of eyes.
Well, yeah. And Kike, you were going to say something?
Yes. Yeah. Earlier, before, like I mentioned the word of negotiation. Like I think that was very interesting in this project, because since we all were like on the same page of wanting to make one film, not a bunch of short films like put together, we wanted to make it look like one film. We had a lot of negotiation between the directors about what kind of compositions we were going to use for what segment of the movie, if like handheld versus not handheld or stuff like that, and we had to like really like set aside our own personal styles as film directors, and actually decide on what would be best for the film. And we made like some rules that we all decided to follow, so like all the different aesthetic decisions and narrative would make sense in the different segments of the film. Like, for instance, like the first, I don't know, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, there was a rule for those 25 minutes, Then in the second act, we could do something else. And I don't remember specifically what was the playbook, but we had a playbook for that kind of.
You had a Bible, so to speak, for the movie.
Exactly.
Like you would for a TV show that had multiple.
Exactly. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay, we got a couple of comments here. Mr. Ethan, always checking in to make sure I'm doing my job right, says, thank you, Enrique and Mauro, for your movie. Thank you, Enrique, again for hosting the festival. As always, 27 years strong. And then we have a comment here from Caro Hernandez. Saludos, chicos.
Saludos, Caro. She's a producer of Days of Light.
There you go. Another thing that hit me about the movie is just the talent of the child actors that you had. How, I mean, I have difficulty casting a movie in one city. I can't imagine casting a movie in 6 countries for a tight window like that. How was that process? How deeply were you guys involved with it, or did you sort of leave some of that to some of the on-the-ground producers?
Well, actually the casting for each one of the movies was done by each one of our production crews in each city, because it would be suicide to try to control a process like that.
Yeah.
Just too big, and
were they mostly did you get any, like, were there any non-actors cast, or did you get, or was everybody pretty much a professional?
No, it was a mix.
It was a mix. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
always a mix down here, around here,
No.
Always mix.
but you find some incredible talent. Those kids did an amazing job.
I love to work with like here in Panama, we don't have like a long film tradition. There's more a theater tradition, so we have a lot of more theater actors than film actors. So, but personally, I like to work with people that come from theater because they have a discipline, and then you have this challenge to actually help them, work better for film. But in the case of the Panama segment, two main characters. One was a long-standing theater actress, Cloti Luna. She's been in every a major theater performance here in Panama. And the other one was Enid Galvez. She's not a theater actor, but actress. She's working short films, and but she's more from experience. And it was a really interesting combination. There's a funny story about the children actors, because Mauro and I, which were involved more in the screenwriting process, when Julio Lopez, the director, told us he wanted to have a child protagonist, we both were like, "Oh, you sure about that? We only have 4 days to shoot. It's a casting." And we were from our screenwriting perspective, we were telling him we could actually make this story work with an older character or stuff like that. And he was really persistent. What would happen if you shot with a really small child and in such a tight schedule? But he pulled it off, and it's a really it's a nice story. It's a pretty story in the end.
No, I commiserate with you, because I love working with theater actors, because if anything, all you have to do is tell them to lower their voice a little bit. They always hit their mark. They're good at remembering their lines. They're off book quickly. Some of the best actors that I've ever had come from the theater and transition over to film. But I mean,
True.
just the logistics alone of that are what was the editing process like? I mean, how are you moving all this footage from 6 different countries into one editing bay? Slowly.
Slowly.
Yeah, it took its time. Actually, the first, I think what we got from, I believe was the 4th cut, something like that. It took off, but the first, when you're watching the first cut of your film, it's always something rough. And if you have 7 other voices, waiting for you and talking and giving their opinions, at some point, you just got to say, okay, let's stop and let's prioritize. What do we want here? What is really working, and what are personal opinions that we think are not really contributing to the whole of the movie? Because that's what we're about. The film has to come out, and it has to come out in the best way possible. So let's focus on that instead of what we could have done and how we can save an individual scene. Let's talk about the whole movie and how that works. And I think I think it was about we were probably about 4 months into editing when we reached that point, because it was a little bit going back and forth between all of us, because we all wanted to get a little bit of more screen time to our story, or maybe improve this in our story, or but that comes with a price. Comes with the price of the other stories, and it ultimately comes with the price of the movie not being as good. So when we reach that point, I think, and I think that Kike here can help me out with this. I think when we had that, things really went along smoothly, and Kike also got a great element into the film, which was the music, and him, along with Isabella, Panama's producer, got us in touch with the rhythm of the whole movie.
I was about to say, if you're in the editing third or fourth cut, and you're directing one part of the movie, and you have a feeling that this scene should be kept in versus another scene, and then the other director that directed the other scene says, no, I think this scene, and everybody has valid points. Did you guys go to like an independent person to make a final decision? Did it never come down to a point like that? Did somebody give at any point? Like, did you guys have any of that friction in Kika?
Yes, I think there was friction, definitely. Like the whole editing process took about 9 months. Like it was really long, and it was really long, mostly because we had to give all this feedback all the time. Like there was one editor. The movie got edited in Argentina. An editor called Cesar Custodio. He did a great job. He was working by him, like he was. We always knew there was going to be one editor, and he would be calling the shots during that process. But what he give us a cut, then we all would see it. We will make a Skype session of 12 people, like 6 directors, 6 producers, and we will back and forth. Like I like this and that, or that, and that would take, I don't know, like 2 weeks or before we could actually get a solid feedback for the editor. Like we will have a like,
You wouldn't have the editor in that conversation because he would be overwhelmed with all the things coming
no,
to him, right?
exactly,
You guys
exactly.
would talk together.
We had to unite as one solid feedback, and that would take time. It took some. That's what took more time, because it's not that we were not agreeing, but as Mauro just said, like there were 6 directors involved. 6 egos, or filmmaking egos. Like, and at the beginning it was like, I don't want to sacrifice this. I like this shot. I like what the actors did in this, that, and what, and it's like, if that usually happens with one director, and it's usually a dialogue between the director and the editor and the producer. This was like multiplied by 6. It took time to actually reach agreements on every cut, not just on the first cut. On every cut we had to go again through the same process, like actually make a meeting, transcribe what was on the meeting, and actually like build a document, a sheet that we can actually give to the editor, so it'd be clear for him to what he would have to work on for the next cut. So yeah, it was overwhelming.
It sounds like the definition of too many cooks, but somehow you came up with a delicious meal at the end, because like I said, I enjoy the process of watching a movie without knowing anything about it. So when Moises and Juan tell me, we want you to do the Q&A for this movie, here's a link, and I just hit play. I don't look at anything else. I just let the movie take me in. And from my perspective, I could not, and I've watched every movie ever pretty much, but from my perspective, I didn't sense, like, it didn't feel like Four Rooms. It didn't feel like something like that where you feel different director style. It didn't feel like Justice League, where one director started it, one finished it. It didn't feel like that. It felt like one cohesive movie. I think at the start of the movie, I felt that I was waiting for the stories to intersect. So so cohesive that at the beginning of the movie I kept thinking, okay, maybe this guy is her dad, or they're related, something like that. And then eventually it sort of dawns on you that you're watching these independent storylines. So kudos, to you guys.
Thank you, thank
Very
you.
very good job. Les quedó
Good
bien
to
el
hear.
sancocho. Le quedó bien el sancocho.
Gracias, gracias. It's good to hear that. It's good to hear that, because that's what we were aiming to, like, actually making one movie.
No, yeah, no. And then I saw that it was okay. You're gonna do the Q&A with 2 directors. I was 2 directors. I was like, I can barely stand working with myself. I couldn't work with another director. That's too many big heads in the room like that. I can't do that. But maybe the fact that you were like separated and stuff like that. I want to ask you guys just kind of what makes you tick as a filmmaker. For both of you? Let's start with Mauro. Did you always know that you wanted to? Is this because I feel like ever since I was a little kid, I've walked around with these ideas about scenes of movies and stories I wanted to tell in my head, just playing over and over. I've always felt that I wanted to tell stories. Is that something that was inside of you from the beginning, or did you fall in love with filmmaking like later on? How did you get there?
Oh, absolutely. I've always been big into movies. I've always been big into going the movie experience. Going into the dark room and sitting and watching the movie and letting it take you somewhere else. Into the mind of someone. That for me is something that is great. But I gotta say, as I've been working on this, and especially with this movie, I found that the other thing that really fascinates me about movies is working with so many talented people. I mean, Días De Luz, you can like it, you can dislike it, whatever, but just the process of sitting down with each and every one and getting into their heads, what their mind space is, what they're thinking, that really gets me going, and it cranks up my juices as well. Just to be in the presence of so many creative people like Kike.
Thank you. Yeah, so, same here, Mauro. It was great to work with all you guys. And going back to your question, Luis, like same as Mauro, like I more than knowing that I wanted to be a filmmaker or anything, I've always been like what do you call that in English? A film buff, cinephilo. I always enjoyed a good film since I was a little kid, and I don't know. There was like this turning point when I was like 14, 15, when I actually realized that people made films. Like there were people behind the product, and I was like, oh man, people actually make films. So I could actually this is what I could do. Like, because I like watching films, so maybe I could make films. So yeah, I started. You're like 15, 16, and people are all over you. Like, what are you gonna do once you and you finish high school? What are you gonna be? What do you want? And I'm like, maybe I'll be a filmmaker. And people like here in Panama, like back then, like I don't know, that was 20 years ago, like 15 years ago, it was like, there's no film in Panama. What are you gonna do? Like, it's just crazy. It's a crazy idea. But you're a teenager and you're not thinking about like the market or what's the most rentable, like job position, profitable position in the market, or you're not thinking about any of that, and you're like, I'll just be a filmmaker. Now, like 15 years later, I'm like, okay, man, that was a tough decision. I should have taken it more seriously, but I'm already here and I'm actually enjoying it.
What was the first movie, Kike, that you were obsessed about when you were a kid? What was one of the first movies you were really like you wanted to watch over and over?
You remember this movie called Point Break with Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves?
Make it 2, Utah. make it 2. Yeah, of course.
I saw that movie like 10 times or 20 times when I was a kid.
Okay. What about you, Mauro?
I've seen it.
The first movie I became obsessed with was Back to the Future.
Okay.
That was a number one movie. I had recorded it from one time they were playing it in one of the national networks here, and I would just put it, run it over and then just rewind and watch it again, and I knew all the dialogue.
Obviously, we've all been dealing with this pandemic for the last several months. So, did you guys get a chance to? Obviously, it would have been great to have you guys in San Diego to watch it in front of a live audience. But did you guys get to have that experience? When did you guys premiere it before a live audience, or have you had to do everything virtually so far?
virtually so
Yeah,
far.
pretty much.
I came this close to watching it here in Panama. There's a Panama Film Festival here in March, and I was like a week, like I was gonna like it was gonna be on the 27th of March. I was gonna see it with a live audience, and the lockdown came on the 20th or something like that.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with this festival is that it was the day before the festival was supposed to start, and all of a sudden it was like things were just up in the air. It was so crazy, and here we are like 6 months later. But I think at least the audience gets this. Have you guys gotten a lot of response from film festival? How many have you gotten into? What other places have you guys been able to be accepted in?
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mauro. You went to the first one actually, right?
Yeah,
you were
we
there, right? Yeah.
we premiered. I was able to be in the premiere of the movie. It was on the AFI Latino Fest. It was on Washington D.C. That was on October of last year. So that was like the first one, and then we had the whole route planned for this year. And actually, the second it screened at Icaro, and we won a couple of awards there. And then it was going to go to Panama and Costa Rica as well. But
it did screen in Panama, but virtually.
Okay.
Yeah. Panama, like they shifted to virtual mode like really fast, and it did screen there. And I think this month is the Chicago also, right? Because we're in Chicago as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, my next question for you guys. Actually, we have a comment coming in here from Manuel Duran. Saludos a Mauro. But what kind of response have you gotten from? Because I mean, I consider myself somebody that knows a lot about film, but I don't know enough about Central American film. Have you gotten a response from other filmmakers, like you said, that might not think that filmmaking is a career possibility in Panama or Costa Rica? Have you gotten any response from younger filmmakers, from established filmmakers? What other than the festival circuit, what has been the response to the movie?
Okay. Well, it's from like I always value a lot the response of the audience, of people who actually just go there. Like you just said, I don't know anything about the film. I'm just gonna go watch a film, and I've had the opportunity to actually talk to people here in Panama that just they went into the screener for the film festival here in Panama, and people it's really rewarding that people like that are really like enthusiastic about the film, and they really like the idea of watching a story that takes place in all these different countries, and it's surprising also, when it's surprising and rewarding at the same time when people actually look at details that you yourself don't really like put much thought into it. And I've had a lot of that from people that's seen the film. Also, with the whole thing, the pandemic thing, a lot of people are relating it to it. Like, oh man, you like this is like what we're going through, and it's like we didn't plan that. We didn't plan the pandemic or anything, but it's like people are really relating it to it, and it's interesting that I got a comment once that it's like, oh yeah, we should take advantage of the crisis so we can build a new community or whatever. I don't know. It got all they got all these messages from it. I'm just like, oh, it's interesting.
Well, a lot of the times you don't know the themes of the movie that you're writing until it's out there, and once you created it, it's almost no longer yours. It's people. It's it's out. it's out in the universe. Mauro, did you when you from your point of view of the writing process, um, because obviously there's themes of like love and poetry. There's the mother son relationship. There's the coming of age story. There's a religious story. Did you know? Did you when you were writing them? Did you when you guys were writing them or collaborating on them? Did you try to, even though they're not connected, sort of look for similar themes, or was everything just sort of, or did you have more input from the production teams on in each country as to what the story was going to be? How did that work?
Actually, the way it worked was that each one of the directors had an idea of what they wanted to shoot. Some of them had the idea a little bit more elaborated. Some of them had a big concept of the story they wanted to do. So basically, our job became like fitting the pieces on the puzzle, because what we did was that very early on the writing stage, we said, okay, so this is a story that's going to take place in 5 days, and everything has to take place between those 5 days. And we have the event that happens in the movie. I don't want to like spoil it, but at the third day something happens, and that was like really like, this event is going to unify them all, at least in that they're all witnessing it. But in terms of themes, we wanted each one of them to have their own voice, because the sensibilities that, for example, our Gloria has, our director from Nicaragua, are pretty different from the sensibilities I might have, or the themes that I'm able to explore or want to explore. So that became like, okay, let's see how we can fit this all in and still make it feel like it's the same movie, not five.
You basically said, this is the premise, this is what happens at the start of the movie, and then this many pages in, this happens, so they all have to witness this, and then this happens at the end, right? It's, you sort of gave them like a, not necessarily like a paint by numbers, but like a little bit of structure. You can put your idea as long as it fits into these themes, and what you said earlier, which is, and the first few minutes of the movie need to be shot in this way, and then you can get more creative. Okay, so that's kind of. Did any of the directors sort of fight you back on that? Like you said, the negotiations, about, well, I really think that if you let me do like a 361 shot for the opening minute, then I might be able. Then it's gonna, right, like something like that.
Well, that was the fighting back was the negotiation, I guess.
Yeah. That's the nicest way you could possibly describe that in a film set is. We were negotiating the situation.
Yeah, we were, and still, actually, after it was shot, when we were looking at the dailies and looking at the editing process, we still saw stuff like, oh man, this guy used the crane shot. Nobody was going to use the crane shot, and somebody used the crane shot. I was like, why did he use a crane shot if we agreed there was no going to be any crane shots? And the crane shot stayed in the cut, by the way.
Yeah, because you're like, but all that being said, that's an amazing crane shot, though. Right? There's a lot there's a lot of stuff about, like, because one of the things that I found interesting is this happens, and it's almost like, at first the richest segments of society are not affected by it immediately because of their richness. And then you see that the other theoretically poorer segments of society are not really affected at all by this event. you know.
Yeah.
And then people's richness in this situation starts working against them. I thought that was an incredibly clever sort of point to that story. Is that something that you guys consciously wanted to get across?
Well, I guess it kind of worked itself out. I think you're talking about specifically like the contrast between Guatemala and Panama in this case.
Yeah, the people
It
that
kind
are
of
up in
worked.
the
Yeah.
mountains that are they're almost like it doesn't really change that much about their lives in a day-to-day matter, where there's somebody that's supposedly living like a
Yeah.
very high life is affected more.
Yeah, it kind of worked itself out because, well, as Mauro was saying, like Sergio, the Guatemalan director, he's more into this kind of stories of about people like Maya Quiche stories, people in the rural areas of Guatemala, and I'm more into the urban stories of like Panama City. But most of my previous films being urban stories. I kind of like I'm kind of in love with my city, and I like its contradictions. So I wanted to work with what the contradictions of my city. And like Panama City has these big skyscrapers, and I was like, okay, what happens if the power runs out and they can't go down the elevator, from the 17th floor or something? So I started working out from there, and Sergio was, by himself started working it out from what he wanted to tell, and it kind of all these contrasts started to like appear. And I think Mauro did a great job afterwards because uh, most of the directors, all they gave was like a synopsis, and Mauro then had the had to do the work of the dialogue and a character building. I think Mauro did a great job giving life to the characters, and I think that life that Mauro gave to the characters actually helped out with those contradictions that you're mentioning.
Wow. So not only did you guys give the individual filmmakers a rule, a Bible, and some very
Mm.
specific points to work in the script, but then they turn around and say, okay, here's the story that I wrote based on that with the actors that I have cast or that I want to use.
Mm.
So basically, then they're turning it back around on you, Mauro, and telling you, okay, now you put it back together again. So it's almost like you're going back and forth, and right? Is that
Yes, a lot of back
Basically,
and forth.
basically. I
so?
remember. I remember like I think it was like a month before shooting began that we were really into pre-production, and I was having this long Skype conversations with Kike, just making sure that the puzzle fit, like, okay,
Yeah.
so we got this, and we got to cut this here, and we got to make sure, and long nights, but it when you see it on the screen, it really pays off. So
Yeah, I
very
am. I am fascinated by everything that I'm learning about this movie and how it came together. So I'm very glad that I got to see it without any preconceived notions, or like if he would have told me, these 6 directors and 6 different companies came together and they jointly wrote a script and put a movie together and it all looks the same, and here you go, watch it. I would have been like, what? And so I think that would have tainted how I watched it, whereas seeing it as in a very pure state of mind, I think really helped me again. So again, my kudos to you. We have another comment here from somebody watching. Pull Art, very amazing lineup. Thank you for watching, Pull Art. But what do you think that the next step for you guys as filmmakers in after that? Are you going to try to take on another project of this size? Or are you going to go back to doing your individual work from now? Do you feel that this is sustainable as a filmmaking model? Kika?
I would love to try it again. Actually, right now, if you told me back in 2014 when we started this project that we would be like releasing it on 2020, like I probably would have not gone
Wow.
through it. Because like filmmaking takes time. If like indie filmmaking, and especially in our countries, it takes time. We know that, and we're okay with it. By now, we've realized it takes time. But I never thought it would take 6 years. and like that's before taking on a project like this. Like again, I would consider it, but I think it's an interesting experiment, and if I would do it again, I would try to do it again with colleagues or fellow directors that if we are on the same city or in the same country at least. I think, yeah, that's the thing. I think that the feedback, that
Everybody needs to move to
negotiating,
Panama.
yeah, or I think the feedback and the negotiating we're talking about, actually, it was really like it was what took most of the time. Like
It
being
would
to
have been easier if
Skype,
you
being
could
through email.
It would have been easier if you could have had those meetings face to face, to where
It would be fast. It would have been
Yeah.
faster, I think,
Yeah,
and I think it'd be. I would recommend the model. Try to do a film with the same model, but try to be in the same country this time. Like I think it'd be more efficient, and I think it'd be an interesting process.
Está bien, está bien. All right, we got another comment here from Ivan. Hola amigos, I think this is one of the few experiences of collective creation in Latin American film history. Story. I'm send my film students to watch it. Good. Could you share a top 3 ideas or tips for new directors who want to take a similar process and survive? Well, number 1, do it in the same country. That way, if you have an argument, that way, if you're negotiating, and somebody doesn't like what you're doing, you can punch them in the face. No, just kidding.
Or you gonna go out for some beers afterwards. Create and be more creative.
I think if you had some medicinals and some beers, it would have made the collaborative process a little bit easier. Yeah,
definitely.
But what I mean, that's an interesting question, because I always say that as a filmmaker, your first 3 movies are probably gonna suck, or you're gonna be able to learn a lot. I mean, like the first time you pick up a camera and you try to make something and finish something, it's very hard to make your first movie. Some people do it, but to make your first film like an award-winning short, you're usually gonna get that. But if you could go back to, day 1, shot 1 of your first project, and give yourself advice as a filmmaker from what you've learned on your journey, what would you tell yourself, Mauro?
Embrace the limitations. That'll be number 1. Don't try to fight it. Just use it. I think for this project, that was definitely one of the, if not the most valuable lesson, was that you don't have the time to do it as you want to do it. You don't have the resources to do it as you want to do it. So how can you do it and still be happy with the result?
Steer into the curve.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
What about you, Kiko? What would you tell?
That's a great advice.
What would you tell yourself if you were if you could go back to? Because I think that's day 1, shot 1, your first movie. You get 5 minutes with yourself. What do you tell yourself?
I think I would tell my past self. I would tell to be more patient.
Yeah,
it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time, and you have to embrace it and embrace that process. Because I think back then, like if I look at myself 10 years ago, I was like, I want to make 10 films in 10 years. It's like it's like one after the other. It's like craziness. A lot of ideas coming through my head, and you just want to put them into paper and put them into the screen. And it's like, hey, I would tell myself, choose wisely what you want to work on, and put a lot of energy into it. You don't have to make 10 films. You could do 3 or 4 and make and love them and caress them and give them the love they need to become a good film. That's probably what I would tell myself.
You know what I would tell myself?
What would you tell yourself?
Buy Bitcoin.
Let's not go into the financial issue of filmmaking.
Because if I could tell myself 10, 15 years ago to buy Bitcoin, I could make any movie I wanted to right now.
True. Good point. Yeah.
No, I think that's true, because when I before I became a director, people would tell me, yeah, I've been working on this film for like 2 years, or I've been working on this project for like 3 years, and I'll be like, what why? And then it took me a year and a half to do my first feature and a year to do my second feature, and I'm still working on films that I shot in like 2016 that I just couldn't get right. That I'm still sort of tweaking and working, because I don't like to put work out there unless I'm happy with it. But on a film like this, because a painting is never finished, you just stop working on it. So I can imagine the editing process for something like this. At what point did you sort of say, okay, it's enough tinkering, it's enough, it's ready? Like when did you reach that point, or when did you know?
I think we all had different points in this
So
movie.
some of you guys were like, it's ready now, we're done, let's
Yeah.
get it going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely happened.
Yeah.
Happened.
Keep going. I got to take this call. Keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, for me, I would say like, I would say like it was like the 6th or 7th cut, or something like that. We were
Yeah.
still cutting, doing some things, but there wasn't like much like a different improvement between one of the other. Sure, you can get real picky with what you're doing, but at that point it was like, okay, let's move on, let's do color, let's put on the music, let's finish this up, because we can keep going. I know people who have been going on with their projects for 2-3 years after they're done filming, just trying to get it because they believe they don't have it right. So yeah.
So sorry about that. I had to take that call, but I was paying attention. Enrique, what about you? What was your thoughts at how to get to that end product for you? I mean, and I think that like you said, bringing in, because once you start with the music, then you feel like an attachment to the pacing and the music, right? That for me, that's when I'm starting off.
Now that you mentioned the music, like that was when I started like really like I felt for a moment that I was really worn out from the editing process, because it took a while. It took a couple, like 9 months really, and I was like really worn out. You reach that point when you watch the film like over 20 times and like, oh man, I don't know what to think of this film anymore, because I've been watching it for 9 months. But once we got to work with Rodrigo Dennis is a music composer for film here in Panama. He works actually more for California than Panama. He works from distance, but he lives here, and we started like we contacted him and said, we got a Panamanian film. Do you want to work on it? And he's like, sure, I want to work here in Panama. So he was really enthusiastic about it, and we started working with him. And when he started laying down like the first like proposals for music, I'm like, whoa, this is actually becoming a film. It has music now, and it has a score. And actually, this is the first time I actually work with a score. Like I've worked with different like pre-recorded music in my previous films, but this was like we actually started working on the score for the film. On every like putting like on every scene, like it's gonna have this, it's gonna have that. It was really well thought of by Rodrigo, and that was when I actually like started to like gain, go back into the process with a lot more enthusiasm. After being like worn out from the editing process, it's like, okay, we gotta keep on working with this, and it's actually becoming a solid film now. Like the music process was really important for me, as for my own personal process. Like after being a little bit tired of the film, then you see it with music, and it's like, oh man, this is a good film. This is like we're doing something good.
No, I think by the time I'm finished with every process, I've watched the movie at least 500 to 1,000 times, and it's weird how you can make a cut that's like 8 minutes in, but you still go back and watch it from the beginning again, just so you can see how it works with the rest of the movie. Like you just, even though it's a cut over here, you're like, yeah, but I gotta watch the whole thing to make sure that it works, right? So it's an obsessive trait. One of the books that I read when I was a young filmmaker that really stuck in my head was The Collaborative Art of Filmmaking, which was a book about just the different levels of filmmaking. They basically did an interview with a lot of people from Dead Poet Society, the Robin Williams movie, from the director to the writer to the actors to the technicians to the sound people to the music, and it was just basically like a documentary and a book about the process of making that movie, and it really stuck with me my whole life about allowing film to be a collaborative art. And I think more than any film that I have seen at this year's festival, your movie embodies that theme of film as a collaborative art. And as I've said before, one of the reasons I love doing these Q&As and I'm always helping the festival out is because it gives me a chance to kind of see what my competition is doing. No, what other filmmakers are doing. And it really humbles me as a filmmaker to see the talent, the Latino talent, the talent in Central America that I'm becoming more aware of that is out there. So again, as a lover of film, as a Latino filmmaker, I want to let you guys know how I felt about your movie, and so thank you for bringing it to the festival, and thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure, really.
Y ahora un mensaje en español para la familia latina. ¿Qué es lo que quieren que salgan, cuando salgan del teatro, cuando apaguen su laptop después de ver esta película? ¿Cuál es el mensaje que ustedes quieren que los latinos salgan después de ver su película, Mauro?
Yo lo que quiero es que la disfruten. Quiero que salgan con la sensación de haber pasado 1 hora y media en el cine sin pensar en qué es lo que está allá afuera. Lo que está allá afuera siempre va a estar esperando, pero solamente que estén en ese momento ahí disfrutando la película para mí es más que suficiente.
Quique.
Bueno, yo creo que me adscribo a la intención original de la película, que era, pienso yo y creo que compartimos todos los que estamos en el proyecto, que es borrar las fronteras. Básicamente de que quien vea la película sienta que en verdad estamos viviendo en un solo mundo, sin toda esta ficción de los estados-nación que nos separan específicamente en el istmo centroamericano, que es un pedazo de tierra tan pequeño si lo comparas con otras regiones, y somos 6 países con diferentes culturas, con diferentes visiones y todo eso, pero yo creo que la película busca crear un sentimiento de unidad, de solidaridad, y me gustaría que la gente cuando salga de ver la película pues entienda eso y se lleve ese sentimiento para su comunidad, básicamente.
Porque la única manera, para cerrarlo, la única manera que tú te podías dar cuenta es que tengas un entendimiento muy específico de la diferencia entre el acento guatemalteco y el acento panameño y el acento costarricense. Porque solamente en esos momentos donde decían reales o decían pan, esto, lo otro, donde, yo soy colombiano, uruguayo y vivo en San Diego, o sea que me parezco más a un mexicano, ¿no? Pero yo puedo distinguir los dialectos de Sudamérica bien, pero los de Centroamérica no. Entonces, si una persona como yo puede ver una película entera y no darse cuenta de qué tan diferentes son las diferentes escenas, creo que es muy fácil para una audiencia de capturar ese mensaje. All right, thank you everybody for watching. This has been a Q&A about the movie Días De Luz. I'm not sure if it's playing again, but there's a lot of great movies playing at the festival this year. Thank you again, Mauro. Thank you again, Quique, from Costa Rica and Panamá.
Thank you, Luis.
Thank you, Luis.
It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Make sure that you guys, where can they follow you? Can they follow you guys anywhere? Do you guys have the production companies that people can follow you, or Instagram or Facebook?
Yeah, we have the Days of Light, Días de Luz en Instagram. Días de Luz, la película, ¿no, Mauro?
Y en Facebook, sí, también.
Ajá.
Y en
Días de
IMDb
Luz, la
está como,
película.
y en IMDb está como Days of Light, ¿no?
Days of Light. Y también
Ajá.
nuestra distribuidora tiene la película, la distribuidora se llama Aural Films, ¿verdad?
Aural Film, sí. O Astral. Aural.
Aural
Ah,
Films.
okay. Y un último comentario aquí que entró de Caro. Gracias, Luis, muy buena entrevista. Muchas gracias por tu comentario, Caro. Muy buen trabajo como productora en la película. Muchas gracias a todos los que sintonizados y que tengan una. Nos vemos en el cine, ojalá, en un lugar muy
Pronto.
cerca.
Muy
Vamos, chao.
pronto.
Chao, buenas noches, Luis, gracias.
Chao.
Chao.